Вчора і сьогодні тут, в Берліні, відбулись наші консультації з американською стороною. І це також дуже важлива розмова. Це такий центр, Берлін, таких важливих сьогодні дипломатичних рішень. У нас завжди такі розмови, вони непрості, скажу вам чесно, але розмова була продуктивна, дуже багато деталей. І важливо, щоб мир став достойним. І для нас це важливо. І ми продовжимо нашу дипломатію, спрямовану на закінчення війни.
This is my video update on this Monday afternoon, December the 15th. Coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the announcement from Volkswagen that it will be closing down a plant in Dresden, the first time in its history, in 88 years, that Volkswagen will be shutting down a factory, a production plant in Germany. And this follows Merz's weekend speech where he blamed the economic decline, partly due to the Trump Liberation Day tariffs and the U.S.'s economic policies under Trump. Pax Americana is over, Merz said. The United States is changing how it views Europe. It is looking after its own national interests. How dare the United States look after its own national interests? And Europe needs to do the same. And those Trump tariffs, they're partly to blame for Germany's economic decline. But Merz did not mention what is really causing the economic decline in Germany. The real reason that Germany is undergoing accelerated deindustrialization is because of its sanctions against Russia. That's the real reason that Merz cannot discuss and cannot admit to. And the European Union is about to approve a 20th sanctions package against Russia. Can't make this stuff up, man. Cannot make this stuff up. So Volkswagen, let's see here. Come on, phone, open up. Volkswagen to end production at a plant in Germany for the first time in 88 years. If Merz really cared about the German citizen, about the German economy, if he really cared, then he would abolish the sanctions against Russia, right? And maybe Russia may export some energy to Germany. But Merz doesn't really care about the German citizen, about the German economy, about inflation, about the cost of living. He doesn't care. He's obsessed with trying to bring down Putin. I got to bring down Putin, says BlackRock Merz, transferring the wealth of Germany to his former employer. So the EU is having all kinds of meetings this week, and it's all going to culminate. All the meetings that are taking place right now is taking us to the big day on Thursday, where you have the big European Council meeting in Belgium, in Brussels. And that is going to be the day where the European Union decides on how to better take care of their citizens, the people living in EU member states. They're going to decide on how to bring down inflation, how to improve the salaries of Europeans, how to provide the best health care and education to all of the people living in EU member states. That is what is going to take place in Brussels on Thursday. No, of course not. Of course not. You think they care about that stuff? No. No, they're going to talk about Ukraine and stealing the Russian frozen assets. That's what's going to happen on Thursday. So you have all kinds of meetings taking place in Belgium leading up to the big day on Thursday, where they're going to take the big decision of whether they can steal the Russian frozen assets, use the Russian frozen assets. Did I say steal? My bad. My bad. Whether they can use the forever frozen Russian frozen assets to provide a reparations loan to the Alinski regime so they can keep the conflict in Ukraine going. That's what is going to take place on Thursday. So we have a group of countries which has coalesced, come together in opposition of this reparations loan using the Russian frozen assets, the temporarily forever frozen Russian frozen assets, as Ursula has so eloquently described it, right? And it all falls under EU law, and they claim this is all under international law, the freezing of the temporary forever freezing of another country's assets. But we have seven of 27 EU countries are openly opposing the seizing reparations loan scheme of the Russian assets to Ukraine. These countries are Belgium, Hungary, Slovakia, Italy, Bulgaria, Malta, and Czech Republic. Those are the countries that are now opposing the scheme. We've got tools from Ursula Merz and company. Kaja Kallas, she took a break from the very intense, very high-level meetings taking place in Brussels, in Belgium. The high-level, intense meetings that are taking place that Kaja Kallas is chairing. She took a break from these meetings to speak to the media, and Kallas actually said that it's going to be very difficult to move forward with the reparations loan based on the forever frozen Russian frozen assets because of Belgium's resistance. It's not only Belgium now, it's 6 other countries. 7 countries which are now resisting. Stunning and brave. But she also said that, look, we've gone down the route of Eurobonds. We've proposed Eurobonds. And many EU member states were not so hot on Eurobonds. And so the only option that is really available to us are the Russian frozen assets. But she said if we cannot persuade Belgium to destroy itself for the enrichment of the Green Goblin, then it's going to be very difficult to get money to Ukraine. Another EU official actually came out and said the European Union has no money to give to Ukraine. We're broke. I forgot what her name is, but she has a high position in the European Union, and she came out and said the EU just doesn't have the money. We don't have the money to give to the Green Goblin, so it's the Russian frozen assets or nothing. Look at this Christmas message. Son of a nutcracker, it's Christmas. And that's Will Ferrell. What a bizarre coffee cup in Athens, Greece, with Will Ferrell. All right. Good marketing. Clever marketing. It's a sticker, actually, that they've placed on this coffee cup. So anyway, that's stunning and brave. She is saying that it's the Russian frozen assets are nothing. You have other EU officials saying, look, Russian frozen assets are nothing because we're flat broke. So that's where we are with all of this. Over the next 3 days, the EU is going to place a lot of pressure on Belgium. But the opposition is growing. It's growing and gaining strength The big country that came out against all of this is Italy. That's a big one. And now you have Salvini, who is saying, look, we don't want war or conflict with Russia as Italy. We don't want it. We don't need it. All this loan stuff, seizing of assets, reparations loan is a bad idea. And I think Salvini, he has been a catalyst for putting pressure on globalist Meloni to resist Ursula's tools. So that was the Salvini statement. I've actually got his statement bookmarked. Let me put this coffee down somewhere, and I'll read you exactly what Salvini said. There was an article in a publication in Denmark, which I saw on X, where this analyst, I believe a former advisor or a government advisor or university professor, I'm not quite sure what this guy's position was, but he came out with an article in Denmark just openly admitting that the entire Ukraine conflict has been and still is about destroying Russia. Really does not have anything to do with Ukraine. What it's all about is defeating Russia, defeating Putin, and NATO and the European Union need to stay on course to do this, to deliver a defeat to Russia and to Putin. And once they deliver that defeat, then you can start to break Russia apart. And he actually says in the article that this is the progression of history for Russia. This is, for him, this is about 19, going all the way back to I believe he said 1914, and then you go up to the Soviet Union and the breakup of the Soviet Union, and then you now have the breakup of Russia. See you later, Will Ferrell. So his article is Europe's war goal is in Ukraine is the downfall of Russia. It's all in the title. Europe should strive for Russia's defeat as completely as Germany's defeat in 1945. Russia must be driven into the abyss created by Putin and his gangsters with Western weapons. Yeah, it's Putin and his gangsters, right? Yeah, not the globalists and their gangsters. No. Nope, the complete defeat of Russia is the goal, according to this article from a Danish publication. So Salvini, what is Salvini talking about? Let me find his quote here. Mr. Matteo Salvini. He said, we are not at war with Russia. I don't want my children to fight against Russia. Matteo Salvini called on Europe to refrain from escalating the conflict with Russia. Europe needs to stop boycotting attempts to establish peace in Ukraine, he said. In his opinion, Germany and France are trying to shift their problems abroad as things are not going well for them themselves. True that. Very true statement from Salvini. Merz and Macron, one of the factors in them constantly trying to escalate and trying to keep the conflict going is that if there was some sort of a resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, then that would mean that all the focus would revert back to their own countries and their own incompetence in trying to run their countries. So where are we right now? Hadrian's Arch. I don't know if you guys can read that. So we have negotiations taking place in Berlin. Between Witkoff, Kushner, and Alinski, as well as Stub. Stub is going to babysit Alinski in the second day of negotiations taking place in Berlin. Yesterday we had the first day of negotiations between the United States, Ukraine, and Europe taking place in Berlin. Merz was, as the host, it's taking place in Berlin, but Merz was slated to babysit Alinski, and there are reports saying that the Americans, they told Merz to take a hike. They kicked him out of the meeting. He's hosting a meeting in Berlin, in his country, between Ukraine and the United States, and in his very own country, the Chancellor of Germany is told to sit this one out. That tells you everything you need to know about the sovereignty and the independence of Germany when it comes to the United States and to these negotiations. So the reports are that Merz wanted to sit in and babysit and protect the Green Goblin, but he was told to leave, at least leave for a certain amount of time. And now you have the second day of negotiations. Yesterday's talks lasted for 5 hours. And these are very intense and deep negotiations that are taking place between Witkoff and Kushner and Alinski, because as I said in my video update yesterday, the sovereign, independent, non-elected president of Ukraine, Alinski, he's dug in. He has dug in his position, and he refuses to budge when it comes to resolving the conflict with Russia. And the Trump administration, unfortunately for the Trump administration, and this is very unfortunate for the Trump administration, they're trying to find some leverage over Ukraine and Alinski to try and get him to change his position, but they're just not able to find that much leverage over Ukraine. They just can't figure out how to put pressure on Alinski. Never mind the fact that the United States completely owns Ukraine from top to bottom. They pay for everything. They keep the conflict going. They run the entire conflict. They provide all the weapons, all the money, all the support. Never mind all of that. The Trump administration just cannot find any leverage, any pressure to place on Ukraine. They just can't find it. It's tough, man. It's tough trying to negotiate if you're the administration of President Trump and you have Alinski sitting across the table. Very, very tough to find pressure points on the Green Goblin. Very tough indeed. Yeah. So they did make some headway yesterday. I have to report that they did make some progress because we got the big announcement from Alinski. And this is huge, everyone. This is big. It doesn't get any bigger than what we got from yesterday's meeting in Berlin, which is that Alinski, he is ready to give up for now, to give up the pursuit into NATO, Ukraine's pursuit to enter NATO. Alinski is ready to shelve that. And all he wants in return is security guarantees approved by Congress. In other words, an alliance, a treaty, an alliance between the United States and Ukraine. Melina Mercouris. Great, Melina Mercouris. All Alinski is asking for in return to not pursuing NATO is that he gets security guarantees from the United States, approved by Congress, ratified, a treaty ratified by Congress, from Europe, from Canada, and from Japan. So basically, Alinski wants NATO Article 5 like guarantees plus Japan, right? And then he's going to give up the path of Ukraine entering into NATO, temporarily give up the path of Ukraine entering into NATO. He's not willing to remove Ukraine's path into NATO as is outlined in the Ukrainian constitution. He's not ready to go that far. But you have his word. You have Alinski's word. And he'll even announce this in one of his TikTok videos. He may even put it in writing. He may even write that, Alinski, he may write it and he may sign it and say, you know what, we're not going to pursue a pathway into NATO as long as we have US, Europe, Canada, and Japan security guarantees, NATO Article 5 like security guarantees. Once he gets all of that, then you have his word that Ukraine is not going to pursue entry into NATO. They think we're stupid. They think that Russians are stupid. That's the weird part to all of this. They think that this is going to what? Fool Russia? Is that what they believe? And of course the media is reporting on this as if Alinski has made huge concessions, when in fact he's made no concessions whatsoever. He's actually asking for more than NATO. He's asking for NATO plus Japan. So he's asking for more than a NATO entry. And of course, if you have a military alliance, a recognized military alliance between Ukraine and the United States, that would mean that any conflict between Ukraine and Russia, future conflict, including false flags, would compel the United States to enter into a war on Ukraine's behalf against Russia. That's the situation there. That's what Alinski is asking for. So anyway, that was the big news. The Guardian is reporting Ukraine is willing to drop ambitions to join NATO. Alinski says, move marks big shift for Ukraine, which has fought to join NATO as a safeguard against Russian attacks. That's coming from The Guardian. It's a big shift for Alinski. I'll give up NATO if you give me NATO plus Japan. That's a huge shift for the Green Cabinet. Oh, man. So anyway, that was the big news from yesterday. We'll see what big news comes out of the meetings from today. What big non-concessions, fake concessions, Alinski, Witkoff, Kushner, and Alexander Stubb come up with today. And of course, the Russians have already said that they're going to reject all of this. They already realize that this is all ridiculous nonsense. The United States, Ukraine, and the Europeans negotiating these fake concessions and these fake terms, which take none of Russia's interests into consideration. They don't even come close to addressing Russia's interests. That's an interesting street. We're moving further and further away from Istanbul Plus. But you know, the Europeans have accomplished something very important. They're kind of participating now in the talks, right? The Europeans wanted a seat at the table, and Trump handed them a seat at the table. They're there. It's in Berlin. It's in Europe, these talks. Merz tried to sit in, got kicked out. Alexander Stubb, I imagine he will not get kicked out because he is a golfing buddy of Trump. So the Europeans managed to get a seat at the table, and sure enough, they are wrecking whatever progress was made between the United States and Russia. Boy, are they wrecking it, the Europeans. Acropolis Suites, Endeka 11, right next to Panos' Tavern, which has Mercedes, Greek Mercedes, nice, very nice. So what else should we talk about? 545 drones sent into the Russian Federation over the past day. Ukraine launched a huge amount of drones into Russia. I believe most of them were knocked down, if not all of them, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. But as you have all of these fake negotiations taking place, negotiating amongst themselves, the Europeans, the United States, and the Green Goblin, as these events are taking place in Berlin, they are sending hundreds and hundreds of drones into Russia. 545. That's the number that we got. And these drones are, of course, being sent with the intel and with the help, if not full command of the United States military, NATO. These drone strikes into the Russian Federation cannot be done by Ukraine alone. All the targeting and all the satellite and everything is coming from NATO and the United States. So that's an update there. Should we talk briefly on the horrible situation in Australia? Hello, my friend. Pass. He was a little scared, that cat. But anyway, the situation in Australia, the Bondi Beach shooting, the terrorist attack in Australia, the casualties have now reached 16, I believe, the last I read, and over 40 or 50 injured. 16 deaths and over 40 or 50 people injured. It was an event that was taking place to mark the first day of Hanukkah, and the two shooters, one of them was a father and son. One of them, I believe the son was killed, and the father is in the hospital. And they did pledge some sort of an allegiance to ISIS, Islamic State. The oldest victim was 87 years old. Injured were 40, 5 of them in critical conditions. 16 killed, including a 10-year-old girl. Surviving attacker is a 24-year-old in critical condition. Okay, the son, according to this report, survived. 2 police officers were injured during the exchange of gunfire with the attackers. I hope this information is correct. Maybe it's not correct. I was under the impression that the father survived, but it looks like the son survived. Anyway, they pledged some sort of an allegiance to Islamic State, which is weird, I guess, because on the same day, you also had the attack in Syria against the U.S. servicemen from someone connected to IS, to Islamic State. So it looks like IS or ISIS is reactivated, I guess you could say. Anyway, horrific couple of days in Australia. That continues to get worse and worse as far as casualties go. So there were elections in Chile, and they elected a new president who is on the right. Mr. Cast. Chile elects Cast as president, deepening regional shift to law and order politics. So they're voting for the right in Latin America now. We've seen a shift which was towards the left 3 years ago, and now it's shifting to the right. Cast's victory marks the latest win for the resurgent right in Latin America. He joins Ecuador's Noboa, El Salvador's Bukele, and Argentina's Milei. In October, the election of centrist Rodrigo Paz ended almost 2 decades of socialist rule in Bolivia. This is coming from CNN. So that's an update in Chile. I believe Cast, he's been trying to to win the office of the president for over two election cycles. He's actually tried to become president, and he has failed. But now he's won because of an increase in crime and migration into Chile has helped Cast win the elections there. That's my understanding of things. So should we get into some clown world territory? Trump, he gave a speech. I believe this is at the Oval Office. I'm not quite sure in what room. The Oval Office in the White House. I'm not quite sure what room this is taking place in, but Trump was speaking, and he said that he has collected or taken in $18 trillion in tariffs. Really? Maybe he has $18 trillion in promises, but I don't know if he has 18 trillion in tariffs. Maybe 18 billion is what he's collected. But 18 trillion, if that's the case, well then the US's debt is is almost gone, right? It's almost halfway gone. But of course, he hasn't taken in 18 trillion. Ursula and the European Union, they promised 1.5 trillion. What happened to that, to that promise from Ursula? So anyway, that is what Trump is saying now, 18 trillion. 18 trillion, that'll never, ever happen. Never happen. They're just going to wait Trump out. That's what they're going to do. All the people that are promising all these trillions, they're just going to wait his presidency out. They don't have that long to wait. Midterms. Once the midterms come, and if Trump loses, if the Republicans lose the House and or the Senate, then Trump is going to be completely occupied trying to fight off all of the cases and the impeachments that the Democrats are going to throw his way. So all they have to do, all the people that have promised Trump all these hundreds of billions and trillions, all the countries have to do is wait another year or so. And then Trump is going to be too occupied to even think about tariff stuff. Anyway, that's what he said. And then Trump said that he is building an ark. He is building an ark, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. An ark, like the Ark of the Covenant. No, he's not going to build that kind of ark. Trump is going to build an ark like in Paris, like the Arc de Triomphe. It will be like the one in Paris, but it'll blow it away, Trump said. It'll be better. It'll be better than the Arc de Triomphe. It's going to be gold and big and beautiful. I like it. I like it a lot. Hey, guys, like this video. Like this video. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. I'm forgetting to say it at the beginning again. But anyway, at least I remembered before I conclude this video update. But yeah, he's going to build a big, beautiful ark, and I like it. I like those big, beautiful arcs. So he announced that. And finally, going back to the EU, Politico.eu, they put out an article with the title, "Forget the Far Right. The Kids Want a United States of Europe." On social media, the upcoming generation is expressing more European solidarity than the continent has seen in decades. A futuristic EU soldier stands guard, laser blaster at the ready. European fighter jets zoom through the sky over thumping Eurodance beats. An imaginary map shows a vastly enlarged EU swallowing everything from Greenland to the Caucasus. Welcome to the wild world of pro-Europe online propaganda, where the EU isn't a fractious club of 27 countries, but a juiced-up superpower on par with China or the United States, only wiser and more cultured. Yeah, who's Politico trying to fool? That's right, all the kids want a United States of Europe. But that's all I hear the kids in Greece talking about. How do we get to a United States of Europe? I want a United States of Europe with laser blasters. Laser blasters. And Euro fighter jets. But we'll be better than the United States empire. We're going to be a better empire. than the United States empire, because we're going to be wiser and more cultured, because we have Ursula and the very wise. She'll be older by then as well. She'll be smarter and wiser, stunning and brave Kaya Callas. And we have Jungle Joseph. Absolutely. And they talk about the Russian Empire. Putin wants to build an empire, said Rutte. He wants to build the Russian Empire. Meanwhile, all they do is talk about the expanding EU and an EU empire to rival China and the US. Ah, man. Anyway, can you guys see the Acropolis? Can you guys see the Acropolis right through there? Kind of see it. I'm going to end the video. theduran.locals.com. We're on X, we're on Rumble, we are on Telegram. We're also on Substack, so check us out on Substack. And the Duran shop. You will find the link in the description box down below. Let's see if I can get a better view of the Acropolis from here. No, you don't have a better view. If you guys want to stick with me for 2 minutes, then I'll get to the end of the street and you'll get a better view. Over here is the museum, the Acropolis Museum to my right. And if we make it to the end of this street, you'll get a view of the Acropolis.